The National Executive Council of the APC extends the tenure of John Oyegun and his team. What does this mean for the party in search of peace? And in the wake of the country's security challenges, the police is embarking on a nationwide mop-up of illegal firearms in wrong hands. How does the force intend to go about this ahead of the 2019 general elections? And thanks for joining in, everyone. That is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Walking Baloye in Lagos, Channels Television headquarters. It is already looking like a busy year for Nigeria's electoral umpire, INEC. And in the middle of the running arounds, the commission is trying to keep its actions and deeds in line with the law of the land. So the chairman of the commission is reiterating the need for resident electoral commissioners to stay on the side of the law during the 2019 general elections. At a meeting with resident electoral commissioners in Abuja, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, re-emphasized the commitment of INEC to deliver free and fair and credible election in 2019, warning Rex to be wary of politicians who may want to influence the voters. Resident electoral commissioners often act as administrators for INEC during elections. Away from election stories for now to security matters, which is the whole essence of governance. The strength of the security Nigerian setup has been tested many times. The abduction of more than 100 girls by Boko Haram is the latest of the challenge facing the nation. Yesterday, the military said the police dropped the ball in Dapchi attack. The Nigerian army and the police force engaged in a blame game over the abduction of the 110 girls from Government Science and Technical Girls College in Dapchi, Yobe State by insurgents. Today, the federal government has set up a 12-man committee to investigate the circumstances surrounding the abduction of the girls. The committee is expected to ascertain the circumstances surrounding the abduction of the girls, confirm the presence, composition, scale and disposition of security in Dapchi and the school before the incident, and also suggest measures that can lead to the location and rescue of the girls. And differently, but still about averting attacks and solve many of the security challenges the country is faced with. The police said they need to mop up arms and illegal firearms. The Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, has directed the commissioners of police of all the state commands of the Federation to immediately commence the disarmament and recovery of prohibited firearms, ammunition, and weapons in the possession of all suspected militias, bandits, vigilante groups, neighborhood watch, etc. Well then, let's get to the conversation. The spokesperson of the Nigerian police joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Moshood Jimoh is a guest on the program tonight. Thank you so much, Mr. Moshood, for your time on the program. If we begin the conversation and look at what has happened in the past, for example, in 2011, there was about 300 deaths in the post-election situation. And in 2015, 58 persons were said to have been killed in pre-election matters. If you look at the situation and the kind of arms and ammunition that fly around during the election, is this perhaps the reason why the police force is coming up with this policy?
Thank you so much. I want everybody listening to us to know that our first responsibility under the Constitution is to protect life and property of every Nigerian, whether there's election or there's no election, or probably before, during, and after every elections. And there's no doubt that we have rose up to these challenges, and we have ensured that every election being held in the country will provide adequate security. When it comes to election security in the country, the Nigerian Police Force is the lead agency. In fact, the Inspector General of Police is the chairman of Security Committee, as it has to do with Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, so also in the state across the country. But mopping up of his recent directive is not based on the issue of the election. Is to ensure that even before the elections, all illegal prohibited firearms in wrong hands, especially those who are vigilante, those who are neighborhood watch, equally some hunters, and people who bear unlawfully illegal firearms, return them within the time limit that the Inspector General of Police has set. He has set up a task team at the force headquarters, which comprises the DIG operation and other departments of the force, and they've started working. So 21 days was given from the 22nd of this month, and it's going to expire on the 14th of March. But by 15th of March, full enforcement will commence. And this to give Nigeria the opportunity for those who must have innocently acquired these firearms and obtained wrongly the license. Because it's part of the release for public to know that no license will be issued or will be recognized in respect of prohibited firearms. And mostly for purpose of those who are listening to us to know, prohibited firearms are the one that you have listed on the screen. But for those who are bearing pump-action gun of all categories, they are equally prohibited firearms, and they should return them to the Commissioner of Police in the state where they are domiciled. So we are doing this because we have responsibility to ensure that our preparation toward the 2019 election start with the pre-election period, which are period of picking nominations, of political campaign, of seeking primaries and all the likes. And when you go into the period of the election we have to ensure adequate security and maximum provision of safety during the election period, and equally after the election, because you have some instances where you don't have problem during the election, but when the results are being announced, you equally have this problem. And if firearms are allowed to be in wrong, and definitely it can mar the possibility of having a very smooth election. So ensuring safety during the election have to go with a lot of planning and strategies in place. So these are part of the action plan of the Nigerian Police Force to ensure that Nigeria is peaceful before, during, and after the election. But the mopping up of illegal firearms from wrong hand is not aimed at the election. It's to ensure the security of lives and property of every Nigerian, and to ensure that equally we have issue of elders and farmer classes, we have issue of kidnapping, we have issues of armed robbery and other related violent crime. This to be able to stem the tide of this criminality by mopping up illegal firearms from wrong hands.
What happens after the 21 days grace period that you have given, the ultimatum that you've given for those who are in possession of these firearms or the illegal weapons?
The Inspector General of Police have directed the operation to be more encompassing, and it's going to involve cordon and search of any premises suspected where on reasonable suspicion where prohibited firearms are suspected to be kept. And that is why we encourage members of the public who must have information to anybody bearing firearms or who is in custody of firearms or who is possessing them to report promptly to the Commissioner of Police in various commands. We've equally make available the phone number of this Commissioner of Police. We did an advertorial publication in 4 daily national newspapers yesterday and today for people to be more aware and where they can report this. So from the 15th of March, anybody that is found will be treated, will be arrested, investigated and prosecuted. But if you return before the 14th of March, definitely we are going to actually take it into custody, because the armament unit of the force across the Federation are equally being activated, and they have been empowered to take these things into stock. Definitely we equally look at the circumstances for you bearing the firearm in the first instance. And where we have seen that you've not used such a firearm to have committed an offense in the past, and we will go further to take other necessary action as is expected.
Perhaps before we close the conversation on this very matter, in election situation, we're already in the election season, and the fever is in a high octave right now, and we see politicians moving around in meetings and all of that. So usually this is a moment where we see recruitment of political thugs, and you see all of these issues coming up before the election. There are hotspots generally during the elections, before the election. Have you identified some of these? Already there are 2 staggered elections. There will be 2 staggered elections in Ekiti and in Osun State. Are these major concerns for the Nigerian police?
Of course, election security is one of the major concerns for the Nigerian police force. Mind you, we did do a gubernatorial election successfully. We equally repeated same in Ondo, and it was very, very successful as security-wise, and the election was peaceful and free and fair at the end of the day. So we are quite concerned of those 2 elections coming up, and we make adequate preparation in ensuring that. So we don't want to join into any assumption. We are working on facts. Security assessments have been carried out in those 2 states, and the area of need, the area where we need to remove all the criminal elements before the election, as we speak, those operations are already ongoing to remove all the criminal elements in those areas so that the election can be free and fair. But if you permit me, I want to make a categorical statement, because earlier on you talk about issue of the police and the army throwing ball, as this has to do with the student that kidnapped in Dachi. I want to state categorically that the Nigerian police force and the army are working together closely to ensure peace in the general area that are affected by insurgency. So we want members of the public to disabuse their mind of any trade blame between the Nigerian police force and the Nigerian army. We are working closely. The leadership of
Mr. Moshood, the big question there, sorry if I may butt in, the big question there was that the military has said they have handed over some of these areas to the civil authorities headed by the police, Nigerian police force. And the question on how this incident happened over these several hours that these insurgents took in their operations. What is the preliminary discovery of the Nigerian police, and how did this happen after the military had said they've handed these areas into the hands of your force?
Thank you so much. What I'm telling you is that the Commissioner of Police in Yobe State has equally reacted to that, because it's the Commissioner of Police that is on ground, and he has equally said it was not formally handed over. But the bottom line I'm trying to let you know is that we don't have any misunderstanding or any misgiving between the 2 agencies. We are working together, and the government is equally doing its best to ensure that all security agencies are mustered together to achieve the national interest of ensuring peace, and the recovery of this girl is what is paramount in the minds of all the security agencies that are involved in this operation. So there's no doubt that the hypes in the media, or probably some people with some certain mischievous intention, must have been spreading some certain falsehood into the effect that we have misunderstanding. We don't.
All right. Mr. Moshood Jimoh, the spokesperson of the Nigerian Police Force, many thanks for your time on the program tonight.